This movie was so bad they made it twice. Which one is worse? Exorcist the Beginning or Dominion, a prequel to The Exorcist? And what was so horrific about Dominion that the studio wouldn't let anyone see it for years?
I watched this movie back to back one night, and honestly, the next morning I woke up so sick I couldn't get out of bed for a day and a half.
And so we've warned you. It's time for We Watched not it, but them, so you don't have to.
We're here to tell you what these films are about, the differences between the two, some interesting facts about the films and their production, and debate which one is worse. Is there anything at all worth watching here? So, interesting movie fact, this movie almost starred someone else, someone big. Do you know who?
He has a very particular set of skills.
Nick Cage.
Yes.
No, but I would watch that if that happened. No, it is actually Ra's al Ghul. No, it's Liam Neeson almost starred in this film. So we almost got the Taken version of The Exorcist.
Could have been cool.
Yeah, these films came out in 2004 and 2005.
When? No.
2004 and 5.
Yeah.
I thought these came out in the 90s.
Nope. 2004 and 2005.
Then why were the effects so bad?
Oh. I have no idea.
No, dude, no. I'm chill for one sec. Dear God, they did come out right around then, didn't they?
Yeah.
Man,
there's
dude,
no excuse.
I haven't watched these movies since I saw them in theaters.
I could have done better CGI than this movie.
Jurassic Park came out in 94.
Yeah.
So this is 10 years later. You know, even the people who sucked at special effects should have gotten up to that point by now. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. A few of the.
I was giving it some slack because I was like, okay, not everyone's Spielberg, can't get LucasArts for everything, so it's still trying. But 2005.
Yeah,
this like 1995 TV effects. Yeah, the hyenas were horrible in both films.
Well, or the lady running down the hallway. It's like, what?
Like slow motion, but then when she was really far away, she's like,
I can't wait to talk about
like Kermit the Frog in the background.
Yeah, it
was. Oh, we'll get there.
Unfortunately.
So this movie also focuses on an interesting question. It is the source of evil human beings or something else like demons? And there were only 2 actors retained from Dominion. Dominion was filmed first. And Drew, do you want to tell the story behind these movies for the listeners?
Sure. Yeah, so they wanted to do a prequel to The Exorcist. So they started with what was now called Dominion. And they had it filmed, and when they were putting it out, the studios looked at it and they said, you know what, this movie is just not scary enough. So we're going to shelve it. We're just not going to do it. And they decided, we'll reshoot it. And not like we're going to take some of the same scenes that you shot. It's just like, we're just going to start it completely over. We're going to rewrite the script. We're going to redo it all. So the poor Skarsgård had to do this movie twice. And it shows. And so they redid it and they put it out as Exorcist the Beginning, and it came out in 2004, and it was not well liked or well received. So during the premiere, the original director for the movie was sitting in the theater with William Peter Blatty, and Blatty's like, this movie's not good. So the director's like, you know what? It's so bad that they might actually let my film be seen. And that was true. So in 2005, I think Doug said something like 9 months later.
Something like that, yeah.
They put out this one, and they put out Exorcist Dominion, a prequel to The Exorcist Dominion. And it just wasn't good either. So they're like, if at first you don't succeed, don't try again. That's what they should have done.
Oh, man.
Rewrite it, at least.
Oh, man.
Did you guys know, and does it show in the film, that the director was actually filming on crutches when they filmed the beginning? He was in a bad car accident, and for 6 weeks he filmed Exorcist the Beginning on crutches. Who I believe directed Die Hard 2.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I think that was one of his big ones too.
Hmm.
Also, not a Christmas movie.
I do find it curious they brought an action director in for this, and that shows that does.
Yeah, so that's like one of the differences in between the films is in beginning it is a lot more action orientated in that aspect of it, and there's a lot more special effects, which as Doug mentioned are horrible. And for Dominion, it was a little bit more. I mean, it lacked the action
It's
sequences.
cerebral.
Yes, they went a little deeper
Human
with
drama.
meaning and human drama, and
They missed the mark on that.
yes,
I think they could have made it. I mean, well, the original Exorcist, other than a few things flying around, a drawer opening, it's more like that. There's not that many action-packed scenes. She attacks her mom, she attacks the doctor, and makes a drawer open, and then nothing happens till the third act.
right.
It's all very, as Drew said, cerebral, but it's done well. It's written well. That's where they missed. They were trying to do that, but they just didn't give us anything to grab onto.
Yeah. Both movies have a story about Father Marin during World War II, and he's in Belgium. And in the beginning, they just mentioned him being in Belgium. He was put in a situation where a Nazi officer was killed, and someone's got to pay for it. And he's making Marin choose, who am I going to shoot and kill to make up for the loss of my soldier? And he's putting Marin. They discuss it, but they don't go into great detail. That's one of the better things about Dominion is the movie starts with that scene, and it's a long extended scene. So you really get to feel what Marin was feeling and why he turned away from being a priest and got into archaeology because of that. I like that part of Dominion, and that's kind of what they kept through the whole movie. But again, it was just kind of lacking, I think, in.
I thought they
This is
cut
something I
the
don't know.
reason that they were shooting, like the reason that this Nazi soldier was executing people from the town in the first place. I didn't catch it, so I thought they actually cut out the fact that someone had killed a Nazi soldier in that town. They didn't know who it was, and so here comes this guy, and he's like, okay, I'm going to shoot 10 of you. Priest, you have to choose who dies. So you're saying that they did drop a line to say what happened that made the Nazi officer put Marin in this position?
Yeah, in Dominion, that's how the movie starts. It's you.
But in the beginning, did they cut that
In the
part?
beginning, he was talking about how he was in Belgium and they did a quick flashback, but it just was really just about you're going to choose.
Yeah,
and you're like,
there's
okay,
no,
they didn't really go into it so much. So it's like, oh, well, it was a bad situation, but we don't really know the full extent of it.
Yeah.
So I thought they did a better job with that in Dominion than they did in the beginning.
And it was better for the movie going into it knowing why he was having that crisis of faith instead of just throwing little things out here and try to figure it out.
Yeah,
They really didn't even give you a good explanation for it either. I mean,
For
he knew he had
listen-
to choose people, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
For listeners to know what he did, Marin did eventually give in. He first tries to say, no, shoot me. Well, the Nazi officer won't do that. So he just starts executing people. And in the beginning, he just shoots a little girl, which is pretty brutal. So then, to prevent everyone from dying, because the Nazis like, well, if you don't choose, I'm going to kill you all. Marin starts to choose people to be executed. And he starts, in Dominion, it implies that he chooses people in the town who might have some morality issues or something. And so he's choosing people who I don't know if he thinks this, but they're trying to give you the idea, the audience, that these people might deserve to die a little bit more than some other people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
So
he said, you're
it's-
his priest and they confess to you, so you know their secrets. So you pick the ones who are the worst.
Yeah, and I don't
And-
remember that line being in the beginning.
It was
But
not.
basically, because Marin saw such horrible evil, he's like, this is a classic case of what they call the problem of evil in theology. It's where someone sees how horrific life can be and they think, why would God allow this kind of evil in the world? How could God exist and this still happen? So he goes into that crisis, and that's the setup for Dominion. And in the beginning, we see that in flashbacks, it is a very common form of doubt that people struggle with. So it does make for an interesting kind of vehicle to explore faith and doubt through.
Yeah.
whether or not they do a good job.
That was the other part of it, though. It's just like it just didn't work. And I feel bad because Skarsgård, I thought, did a pretty good job. And actually, in both films, he did a good job.
Oh, yeah.
He was very believable as that character. But it's just it's too supernatural in beginning, and in Dominion, it's just boring.
Yeah, tell listeners what happens at the beginning of the beginning.
I don't even remember what
it's the soldier out on the battlefield.
Yeah, so this happened like years in the past,
like hundreds,
and
during the Crusades.
Was it a soldier? I thought it was a priest.
It's a priest.
Priest during the Crusades.
Yeah,
and he's on a battlefield. Everybody's dead except for him.
Thousands of people. So I think we're to assume that he buried them all.
Boy, I don't know.
In beginning, they don't explain it too much. In Dominion, they explain the church, but they don't have that crusade part on it.
You know, by kind of the medieval, the dress and the crosses on the uniforms, you know from that, but they don't say any lines to let you know.
Right. Yeah, it's just, they uncover, in both movies, they uncover a temple, a church that has been buried. A Christian church. And all these grave sites. Well, if everyone's dead, who buried these people? And I think in beginning I can't remember what their explanation was because it seemed like to me just a jumbled mess. In Dominion, it was the church was doing a cover up of soldiers came in. There was a big fight with the natives. Everyone died. The church didn't want everybody to know about this. So they built this temple. They buried everybody and then they covered it with sand. That was the reasoning. I can't remember what the reasoning was in beginning. It was something similar, but they didn't go into a lot of depth with any of that.
Well, in both movies, the beginning drops a line to tell you that this church was built on the spot that Satan fell from heaven. So they say the spot Lucifer fell, and Lucifer is another name for Satan. So the church, evil stuff is happening at this spot because it's a very supernaturally active location because of Satan, I guess, plummeting from heaven to earth there, literally, in this movie. They don't show you, but they say. Dominion, they tell you that, and then when they get into the church, after the archaeologists kind of uncover it, they go in there, and there's a whole mural on the wall of, Lucifer falling from heaven and all this to tell you what this church is supposed to be. And they thought, the Catholics thought if they built a church there, it would seal this evil inside. So in the beginning, they don't really show any of that, though, but they say it. And then they say that the church made a fake graveyard and then made it off to the side, and there's actually no bodies.
That's right. There's nobody there. That was right. Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how that had anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
Decoy,
but I could follow it in Dominion.
In Dominion, the storyline was, in Dominion, they did a better job of putting all that out there.
And it's a cool story.
It is.
I love the fact that this, they find out that this is a place where Lucifer fell, and that's why, and, the whole story, well, let's build a Christian church here that will push him out. But no, a building built by man's hands will never stop a former angel, now a demon or whatever, so they've got a good start to it. But then, were they trying to do the whole, is it demons or is it humans that cause the evil? Or I think they were trying to push that a little bit more and make it a little bit more common to people, where they should have just kept it, biblical and supernatural wise, and just go with that, not try to, there doesn't have to be a moral in every movie. Let's just have a movie about scary stuff happening. So
again, that's kind of the difference. In the beginning, they tried to do more jump scares and made it more of almost kind of a classic horror film in that way. Got the subplot going on, but it's, things are happening. This little boy is going to be possessed. And then when it gets into Dominion, they're keeping that more like the serious, interesting storyline. But we got to have somebody get possessed. Let's pick this guy over here who's the most boring character we could possibly think of to get possessed. Right. And that's who they possess.
A handicapped boy.
Yeah. And who did nothing but lay in bed. And it's like, so when he starts getting possessed, I mean, you got to have, if you're going to do an Exorcist movie, you got to have some kind of there's got to be some creepiness to it though, right? It doesn't have to be full blown horror in your face, green puking, all that stuff, but you got to have something that's going to be creepy. And when this dude's possessed at the end, especially when he's trying to do the exorcism on this guy, it was like, this is the most boring exorcism I've ever seen on screen.
Yeah.
It was
no effects
just
on parts of it.
no, it was just like, let's just get this over with and film this. But then on the other side, you've got with Beginning and their exorcism scene. It was like a 20-minute long exorcism scene, chased through a tunnel, fighting and action
Young
packed.
priest dies randomly
Strange.
for no reason.
Yeah, so it was like
No idea why or how or
right. They just went from one extreme to the other. It's like, could you guys just, if they could have just taken the two movies and found a nice little balance in between them, then we may have had a decent film. But instead, we're left with two turds.
Yeah, they definitely needed to put more money into the effects. But again,
Yes.
when you split your budget in half, like what are you gonna do?
here's
Right.
the thing. We're in 2023 right now. Almost to be 2024. We just watched some amazing Star Wars shows like Boba Fett and
Like
Jango Fett
Mando.
and all those guys. Mando, thank you.
Yeah.
And when they used, like when they're on the when he was with the Sand People, those are elephants dressed up. When you see movies nowadays, there you see hyenas, for instance. It's
Yeah.
just dogs dressed up.
Right.
They don't even walk
So this-
correctly.
Yeah, it's like, who thought, let's spend thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in computers and technical people and all this stuff to make that crap version of a few hyenas when they could have just called, the dog whisperer in Hollywood and say, hey, we need to put some fur on your dogs and have them run around and look like hyenas. Piece of cake. I've got 50 dogs that I've got trained to do that.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And,
Yeah.
pay them a few $1,000s, you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, do you want to
they spent so
explain the
much money.
hyena scene?
which,
The first one where he attacks the kid.
we're
There are hyenas in Dominion, but they're
Yeah.
not really a focal point.
right.
However, in
Beginnings,
the
they attack that
beginning,
kid.
There's an awful
kinda-
scene. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And again, it's one of those weird scenes where, like, I'm not a father. Drew is. Nathan's about to be. But my brother's has kids. My nieces are the most important thing in the world to me. If I turn a corner and I see anything hurting one of my nieces, I'm throwing my body at it. Doesn't matter. There's nothing that's going to stop me from just, it may kill me too, but I'm going to do what I can. Where, the kid's getting bit and getting dragged away and his dad comes and runs around the corner. It's just like,
And he just stands there.
Does nothing.
and just he's like running in place.
Mhm.
And it's like your son is being torn apart and you can hear him screaming. He's still alive. Jump in there.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that. And maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe it's wrong for me to think that, there are more timid people out there. Maybe, I don't know. But it just seems to me when, somebody's your blood, your son, something like that, and you see them in pain and being, bitten and ripped apart by multiple hyenas, you wouldn't just stand there.
Right.
So that immediately took me out of Beginning. 'Cause
It
again,
wasn't
it's just,
the
come
awful
on,
CGI.
again. Well, that hurt too, but again, I thought I was watching a movie from the 90s. So I was like, okay, whatever. So that didn't take me out as much, but yeah, just again, and it's pet peeves that I'm cursed with that take me out of things like that.
Mhm.
But so yeah, that kind of hurt me. But yeah, the CGI was just awful.
It
Just
seemed like they sped the speed up
bad.
on the dogs to like double or triple time. So they move like really fast and it's
yeah, very
bad
jerky.
animation.
I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah, really bad.
a PlayStation 1 game at best.
Pretty much. I do want to go back to the opening scene of the beginning before we go any further, because when they are there's two things here. First, they find the priest, the lone priest who has survived this battle, finds a Pazuzu idol, like the head of a statue, in the ground. And in this film and in Dominion, they seem to imply that Pazuzu is Lucifer, which means Pazuzu is Satan. Did you guys walk away with that impression?
I might have missed that line.
Yeah.
Which truthfully I'd be happy with missing that line, because again, I don't know. I don't. Satan's the end character. He's the end game. He's going to take over Earth someday. We all know this. You know, it's going to happen. So I don't see him leading the attack. I mentioned this guy before. I'm blanking on his name right now, but the guy who wrote that book, The Day Satan Called. There's a part in it where he's talking about, he's speaking with this woman and she is possessed. And he looks at her and says, you know, Jesus Christ has beaten you, you know, all this, blah, blah, blah. And he says, yes. Or what was, oh no, someday God is going to defeat you. God is going to create heaven and everything like that. And he's like, yes, he will, but not today. And so they know the end game. We know the end game. So I don't think Lucifer, Satan, number one baddie, is going to show up until it's time. You know, it's not like he's sitting down there and it's like, okay, I'm going to try again next week for the apocalypse. Wish me luck. No, there's a system in place somewhere. I don't know it, but I believe there is one. So again, when it's truly Satan attacking, you know, I'm not a big fan of that. Personally.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because what this affects is in Dominion, the boy who gets possessed at the end, that's supposed to be Lucifer himself. So he miraculously has a hand that's healed. He has a withered hand, right? And when he gets possessed, this is an interesting theological idea, because in the in the New Testament, you have Jesus healing people with withered hands, right? So here in this film, you've got this kid who's an outcast who has a withered hand, but instead of the healing coming from God, who the other priest thinks, when this boy gets healed, he thinks it's a miracle. This healing actually came because he got possessed by Satan and was healed through the possession, becomes stronger, becomes supposedly beautiful, or we would say odd looking, because it's said that Lucifer was the most beautiful angel. Yeah, so he starts to look like Satan when he's possessed. It is, I thought, an interesting idea to play with. I don't know about the execution. Like, it was kind of bewildering. He didn't look scary to me at all.
No.
And later in the film, his appearance changes more and he just kind of looks weird. Some reviews I looked say, wow, he's oddly beautiful. I'm like, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, I can't stop staring, but I don't know why. Because it's writing a line between, I know you're supposed to be telling me that this is like an anatomically correct, beautiful being, but also it's not. It's weird. It's this line between scary and anatomically correct. I don't know.
The only interest, I thought that whole the exorcism part at the end of Dominion was just very boring. They tried. Did you see when they tried to put Pazuzu's face on him?
Yeah.
You remember that? And I remember seeing that and I almost chuckled.
Like, I had to rewind it because it looked so bad.
It did.
Go back and watch it. It's like he's like, turned around. I was like,
yeah, he's like, rah, 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 rah. And it reminded me of like when you see those like videos where they're going to put somebody else's head on somebody's body and it just looks ridiculously fake. That's what it reminded me of. Like, I could take it on my phone and put a filter on my selfie. That's what it looked like. And the other part with that is I don't understand why that guy is the one who got possessed. What did he do to open himself up to become possessed?
It's a good point, because they explained that in the beginning,
right?
Because they were she was the first one to go in with her husband,
right? So she's the one who got
into the church that they found,
right? Correct. So why was this guy possessed? What did he do to open himself up to demon possession? You know, Reagan played with the Ouija board, and in part 3, it was his body was being taken over because of revenge, which was, there's no explanation as to why this guy is all of a sudden being possessed by a demon. So I just like, yeah.
You could say something like he wants to show off his powers and watch me take this nothing kid who has all these disabilities and heal him and become powerful. Maybe then people, he'll have his Satan followers or something like that. You could say something like that. Just say it.
Right. As I say,
They
but
didn't say anything like that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was overall, like I said, I love how they started the story. They just did not come through with it.
Yeah, the character design for me could have fixed this problem. Like if they could have made him scarier at the end, but I feel like both movies kind of fail in the character design department. And during the exorcism, we kind of skipped over that Merrin gets his faith back. I think in Dominion, it seemed like he saw enough weird things happen, and he saw the natives who were kind of manipulated into going to war with
which is
the
what
British
happened.
soldiers. Yeah.
Which is a repeat of what happened in history, and even the British soldier was getting ready to fire upon innocent people, and he's like almost like he's in that same position he was in Belgium.
Yeah, the British soldiers come in to help guard the archaeology site, I believe, because they have an interest in what's in this church. So they come in, but they come in both films. But supposedly, the demon is messing with everyone, manipulating them like puppets. So he's pushing the lead archaeologist to, become evil. I think he goes crazy. I can't remember what happens to him in Dominion, but in the beginning, he's actually part of the reason Merrin gets his faith back, because Merrin goes to see him, and the lead archaeologist has gone crazy. He's carved a swastika in his chest, and he turns to Merrin and he says something that during World War II, the Nazi general said to Merrin as he was executing people. He says, "God is not here today, priest." So when Merrin hears that from this archaeologist, he's like, oh, no one could know about this except, some kind of spiritual being like a demon. So I think it's not really explained, but I think that's what causes Merrin to believe in the beginning. But I can't quite figure out what brings him back to faith in God in Dominion. I can't remember, but my impression was it was a bunch of different weird events, and he looks at this whole series of events and was like, yeah, I think there is actually some spirit manipulating everyone. And so he goes into the church to perform an exorcism in his priest costume. Where he got it, I don't know, because
he's an archaeologist.
He's miles from home. He's not a priest anymore, but apparently he's been carrying his priest garb.
Just in case it gets cold out.
Yeah, but in the beginning, it was not very well developed. In Dominion, it was like all these little things led to him finally having this epiphany. He gets his faith back and goes back into the church to face the demon. Now, in the beginning, when he gets at the top of the stairs in the church and he's getting ready to go down into like the underground area, there is a hidden exorcist face, like a subliminal face that pops up on the back of the concrete lid. So if you do put yourself through this movie for any reason, if you watch the beginning, when he gets ready to go down the stairs and he shines the lantern down the stairs, look right there, because there will be a subliminal face that pops up there. Did you guys catch that?
I did not.
I did not.
You're gonna have to watch it again,
really
man.
watching that closely though.
I'm not.
Which makes me get to come to a point in the beginning, the butterflies, and when the guy offs himself.
Yeah, explain who he is and what
kind of doing
happens.
some work while I was watching that.
He's the British guy.
Yeah.
The British general who comes in.
Right. So I was kind of, glancing up while I was doing a little bit of work, and then he dies. But all I saw was like, he was working on a butterfly and it started moving a little bit. And then he walks over and he grabs a gun and he's like, and then it stops moving. And then he puts the gun down and like, okay, I guess I'll go over here and work. And then they all start flapping. And then he just walks over and grabs the gun. And
Oh, he pulls one out of his mouth.
okay, then I must have missed that part. And that's what makes him.
Yeah, but that's still not enough. I would think that you have to blow your
I
head
didn't
off.
pay
because you
attention
had
to
a
these movies at all, apparently.
It's in Dominion, he kills himself because he had gone mad and killed, I think he shot a native, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had some remorse over that.
That made sense.
Yeah.
That made sense to me.
You're right.
He goes
In
up on a
beginning,
mountain,
though,
he's crying, yeah.
beginning doesn't really make sense for him to all of a sudden go, oh, I had a butterfly in my mouth. I mean, come on.
Everything in Dominion is better developed. Everything in the beginning is poorly motivated. And if you think about the scares, they don't really make sense. Like, they tried to put something scary on the screen, but like, how is the demon able to make a butterfly appear in this person's mouth? And I'll go back to the big memorable scene from the beginning. Again, the first scene, when that priest picks up that Pazuzu idol, he has a vision of like hundreds and hundreds of crusaders crucified upside down.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
Mhm.
So first, I'm like, why is he having this vision? Like, this looks scary, but like, what does it mean? And I know that like someone crucified upside down and an upside down cross is supposed to be like sacrilegious or satanic or something. But that is kind of funny to me, because do you guys know where the whole crucified upside down thing comes from? It's actually from Peter. It's from Peter in the Bible, like one of the disciples. So he's one of the founders of the early church. And when the traditional story is that when he was to die, he was going to be executed through crucifixion. And he didn't feel like he was worthy to die in the same way that Jesus did. So he asked to be crucified upside down instead of right side up. But he did it out of respect for Jesus, not out of sacrilege. So
Really?
it is weird then that like today in horror movies, we've got all these people crucified upside down. I mean, the crucifixion is a horrifying thing,
Right.
but it didn't originally
Doesn't matter if
mean
it's
what
right
it
side
means
up or
now.
down. It's still bad.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a cinematically interesting scene, memorable, scary, but like logistically, like, why is this happening and what does it mean? I don't know. The scares, they just don't mean anything in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. They were, I think in Dominion, he was trying to be cryptic and he got way too cryptic and a lot of it didn't make any sense and it was just boring. So they tried to take a little bit of that, but then try to throw in some, well, apparently early 2000s scares that felt like 90s scares. That, and it was just like, no, we're past that, you know?
Yeah.
By this point, we're past the Friday the 13th jump scares.
Right.
Because we've been watching that for 20 years. So, you know, we need something different, like, you know, some of the decent horror movies today. Paranormal Activity. You know,
Well, The Ring and The Grudge both came out right around this time, and they were pretty darn scary. So this movie, which innovated the genre, I mean, it did not compete with either of those movies.
No,
not at all.
So when we get to the actual exorcisms, the showdown in the church between Marin and, depending on which movie you're watching, either Cheche, the boy, or Sarah, the girl, at this point, like, tension between the natives and the British has been, you know, brewing, and they're supposed to fight. Interestingly, that whole tension between the natives and the British was pretty well set up in Dominion. Not set up at all in the beginning. All of a sudden, they're just fighting. In Dominion, the war does not happen. They do not go to war. Like, once Marin goes and defeats the possessed Cheche, then they don't go to battle. But in Dominion, in the beginning, they fight and everyone dies. So when Marin comes out, everybody's dead. But in the tomb, underneath the church, Marin is either performing an exorcism against Cheche or on Sarah. And there's one thing that was really interesting, I thought, in the Cheche exorcism. Cheche, or Lucifer, tells Marin what would have happened if he had not chosen the 10 people to be executed back in World War II, the situation that caused him to lose his faith. I thought this was really interesting. He tells him that if you hadn't chosen those people, then everyone would be dead. So, yeah, you chose 10 people to be executed, but you actually saved everyone. I think that's really interesting and cool, and it gave Marin closure, but I don't know why Lucifer or Pazuzu or whatever you want to call him would tell Marin that, because I mean he's trying to break down Marin's faith. So why would you say this thing that is very obviously going to restore his faith?
All of a sudden he's giving pep talks.
From Satan.
Right.
So it didn't make sense. I like that idea, but I wish he could have learned that some other way.
Right. No, agreed.
Yeah, you just throw in an extra line where it's like, the German soldier said God wasn't there that day, but he was. A simple prayer, and that soldier would have chickened out and left, and everyone could have lived. They would have had kids, and those kids would have grown up and been good, and blah blah blah. And you would have done, he could have. That's what should have happened.
They should have had Doug write the movie.
That is exactly what a demon would say, not what he says in Dominion. Yeah.
Right.
And see, that would be a great moment of, push and pull, because again, does he believe the demon? Because demons do lie a lot, but they do tell truth sometimes too. And it's like, do I believe that? Do I let him? And then it snaps. It's like, no, don't let him beat you. Don't let him beat you like this. Past is past. We'll ask for forgiveness later. I've got to be in the now, so that would have been a great, adversity to overcome, dealing with that and saying, kind of brushing it off, where, it was just like, hey man, remember that time? You did the right thing. Good job. High five. All right, let's go. Keep coming. It's like, that was kind of weird now that you say that.
Yeah.
And did you guys think that in the moment when Merrin finally succeeds with the exorcism, and this Lucifer demon leaves Cheche? I mean, Cheche is like, I don't know how to describe it. He's like wrenching and like falling to the floor and stuff, but it's almost like there's supposed to be effects and sound effects and stuff going on, and like they just didn't have any money, so it's like he's saying these things
and Haunted Hill effect.
Yeah. Like Cheche is literally like, ooh, like he's just sitting there like doing that. I was like, this can't be what they were trying to put on screen. Like, there's supposed to be some kind of effect here, and they just ran out of money, right?
That or just bad acting.
That was weird and bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I don't know if you can say bad acting. It was bad directing,
or directing,
or bad screenwriting, or
bad movie
that just ran out of money. But when you throw De Niro up there or anybody and say, hey, do this. Well, that's what they're going to look like. So,
yeah, that's not a good idea.
We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought they would do, but they were like, no, we're just going to hang him out to dry. In the beginning, Sarah gets possessed, and the reason there's some stakes there is because Merrin had just apparently fallen for Sarah and kissed her, and it's kind of that forced romance thing, and then all of a sudden he finds out that she's possessed. So why don't you guys tell me your thoughts on this excellent exorcism?
Well, before you get to the exorcism, I like that twist. That twist was kind of cool. I'm not saying it was, the God, top of the line twist, and but it was still kind of cool because you didn't expect that.
No, you thought it was the kid the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did throw a red herring out there.
100%. And they did that part well. And I like the fact of her trying to get with him. So, and it gets to the part, I guess, where you have to ask yourself what you believe in, because, it's like Catholic priests can't, they have to be virgins. So
I forgot about that. But he's not a priest at that moment, right?
At that moment, but for him to do the exorcism, you would want him to be a priest, or I would assume he would have to be that priest to be able to say the words of God. Again, depending on what you believe. So with her being possessed and trying to sleep with or get with him and seduce him, that's the word I was trying to find. Sorry. That was a cool twist with the movie, and I would have liked to seen them push that a little bit more.
Yeah,
and to see him struggle with, if I take this next step, I'm definitely saying goodbye to the cloth. There's no going back, and if they would have showed him dealing with that while dealing with this other stuff, that would have made for a cooler movie. And then to have her turn at the end the way she did, that would have been much more emotional. But they didn't really focus on those two as much as they should to make that impact stronger.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a couple flirty moments, the kiss, and then that's about it. So when that twist came, it was like, that's a cool twist. wish I would have been more affected by it, but I really wasn't worried about them getting together because that just really wasn't focused on the way it should have been.
Well, I thought they might get together after, but she like inexplicably dies.
She hit her head on a rock.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she bled out the back of her head.
I saw the
like
blood come
buckets
out,
of
but
blood coming out of her head.
I didn't remember seeing her hit her head.
When she fell, while she was possessed, she was being thrown up against rocks and running. And at the very end, though, when like all the forces knocked her back,
he went Hadouken.
Yeah, and she flew back. She hit her head, and that's why she died. She bled out.
Okay, I missed her hitting her head, and I was just like, "Wait, what happened?"
What happened?
Yes, I mean that whole exorcism scene is a lot more action packed. I found that one a little bit more, I guess I want to say more fun than Dominion, but at the same time, it was a little cheesy with the effects.
Yeah.
It's like they tried to make it creepier. They tried to make it scarier. And she looked the complete opposite of the way Chi-Chi, what's his name?
Cheche.
What?
Cheche.
Chi-Chi. She had the typical exorcism face, you know, the eyes and the voice and the cracks and Pazuzu's voice, you know. So they were going more with that, but it became more of an action movie at that point. So it's hard to say. I probably enjoyed that one better than Dominion just because it wasn't boring, but it still wasn't great.
See, I couldn't handle the badness of the acting and the effects in the beginning. So even though that was bad, even though Dominion was worse and had terrible effects, I liked the concepts presented more. So that was kind of one of those, like, I can't look away. This is terrible, but I can't look away.
It's a train wreck.
Yeah.
I like the beginning of Dominion more. The story, again, there were some missteps on that. We talked about this before we started filming. What was really cool about, well, I guess you could look at either of them, really. When they found the possessed person, the person who's possessed, they don't know if he is 100% possessed because they're not doing all the crazy stuff and everything like that. At the end of beginning, that's hard to say. You know, she does, you know, her face is demoned out and everything like that. That's fine. We know 100% she's possessed at this point. So bring out the creepiness. Let's, you know, the way Reagan looked in the original one, that was scary.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that. But I did like that in both of them where the person you thought was possessed or who was possessed, they weren't doing all this crazy, insane stuff for people to go, well, maybe not, because, you know, they look normal.
Right.
So maybe not, you know. So I did like that. But yeah, again, the first Dominion was boring. They had it there, but they missed what they were trying to do. They were trying to copy the original and missed that part. And then, Beginning tried to be a modernish horror movie using a little bit from Dominion and just didn't have a story there. I mean, it was just like, oh, weird thing happened. Whoop, another weird thing happened. Whoop, weird thing happened. Whoop, general shot himself for some reason. Whoop, ends the movie.
Yeah, I had to borrow from my knowledge of Dominion to complete the beginning and understand that film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like you have to watch Dominion so you understand what's going on in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they tried to just throw in a bunch of this weird stuff and forgot about the story altogether.
Mm-hmm. They cut all the character development. So what's left is like a confusing story with gaps for the audience to try to puzzle through.
Well, what they did is they brought in James D'Arcy, who was kind of like this new it kid popping around in movies and everything like that. And so when Dominion wasn't as exciting as they wanted to, they brought him in to be a part of it. But then it was like, oh, well, what do we do? Let's just wrap him up and say he's dead and then drop him down to scare the audience. That was kind of it. I mean, his character was, you know, he had maybe one scene that he was necessary. The rest of the time, it was just like, I am the other priest that's here. You know I'm going to die because everything I say doesn't matter. That's the way I felt with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for listeners, there's a priest in both movies. They're played by different actors. There's only 2 actors were retained, and the priest in Dominion is a key character and a key part of Marin like regaining his faith, because he's the one he's having all these theological conversations with, and this other priest is constantly asking Marin about his faith and why he lost it, and well, what about this, what about that, and so you get some discussion between the two. But in the beginning, this other priest plays pretty much no role. He's just there to like supervise because the Vatican has an interest in what's going on.
Yeah, he's there just to kind of push the story. It's like Father Marin would be like, blah, 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 blah. But why?
I think they say he's...
And that's it. And it's like, seriously, you brought in the new it kid to act like a stupid priest for 2 hours and then just die off camera?
Yeah, he was good enough of an actor to...
Oh yeah, nothing against the actor. He's great. He was in Dunkirk.
Oh yeah,
Russell Crowe, Master and Commander, amazing movie. He was great in that. But yeah, it was just like, let's bring him in because he's popular. What do we do with him?
Kill him.
Okay. It's just like
no one will suspect it.
Messed up with that. But hey, he got a payday out of it, so I'm sure he's fine with it.
Well, I guess the only things that you can really learn from these movies that could be important is that Pazuzu might be Satan himself. We learn that Marin once lost his faith and regained it when he encountered Pazuzu. So he and this demon have a history. I think that's pretty much all you learn.
That's pretty much it, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they don't explain why. Why is this his nemesis? If anything, yeah, they should have possessed the Nazi soldier that was in the beginning and say that was his first confrontation with.
And then he sees him again here. Right.
Yeah. Show that scene exactly how it is. But then 6 months later, have that Nazi soldier in chains and just going crazy and everything like that. And the priest shows up and he's like, why'd you make me do that? I don't know what you're talking about. And that's the start of Pazuzu. He was possessing this soldier and he picked Father Marin by hand. Is like, I'm going to mess with him. And that's the beginning. That's what and he lost his faith. And now, I was fine, like I said, with the girl, possess the girl, and he's making him lose his faith more. And it's all about Pazuzu. Don't make him Satan. Make him just this devil who targeted Marin and was like, I'm going to make him suffer. He's not going to believe in God. And that way, when he dies, I get him.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and he overcomes it. You tell the story like that, it's a overcoming adversity story. This was just like, weird stuff's happening. I'm here. I'm going to say a couple words. You hit your head, you're dead.
Well, I did think of a bit of Exorcist trivia that might make these movies important. Is the exorcism in these movies the only successful exorcism in the entire Exorcist franchise? It's the only time an exorcism causes a demon to leave because it's defeated. Think about the original.
Yep.
If you haven't
Pulled
seen
him in
the
his
original,
body and jumps.
I'm going to spoil all of the movies now. So
yeah,
you don't want to skip ahead. But the priest, Father Karras
in the first one.
He says, "Take me instead." So the demon comes out of Reagan and he jumps out a window. It's not exactly a successful exorcism. The demon kind of still won. In the second one, we don't speak of that movie. In the third one, the exorcism didn't really work. It interrupted the demon's concentration or power for a split second so they could shoot the possessed. But is that really a successful exorcism?
Everyone died at the end of that too.
Is like you get the demon to leave because you've defeated it. And these are the only films, Dominion and The Beginning, that I think that happens, even including, the newer one. So
yeah, I guess they didn't defeat the demon. The demon gave them a choice, and
they really lose something in every movie except for this one. That's the only reason that this could be important.
I mean, they defeat the demon in Beginning, but the priest is the only one left. So, and I guess the little kid.
So Dominion, it's a happier ending.
Yeah.
Well, you defeat the demon in Dominion in this one, but he came back, right? So you didn't just rid of him; he just left and came back.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of 3, he got rid of him, right? And then he never came back
until just recently.
So I mean, I don't know.
Well, they can't decide how that.
They don't know. They
should have just stopped with the original and just,
There should have been no sequels to The Exorcist, period.
Well, I love 3, so I'm okay.
3 is good. I mean, if you're going to do it, 3 is the way to do it. But there just should have been it should have been a one and done, and that's it. Not everything needs a sequel or 4 more after that. Not everything needs one.
It's going to be our 6 or 7 when it's all done.
Just enough. We're done.
2 prequels, 2 sequels, the original, and then we're going to have 3 more. 8.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need it. I want to watch The Exorcist. I'll watch The Exorcist. I don't need to see this other junk minus 3. 3 is good. But the rest of it, we don't need it. It's time to stop. It's time to exorcise the demon out of the Exorcist franchise. Let's just quit and send it away. And the power of Christ compels you to not make another movie.
Yeah, the issue was they gave the demon a name. And then they tried to give a demon an origin story. And they failed at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this wasn't about the demon. This was about the little girl who needed help and the people who sacrificed themselves to help her. That's what this movie's about. That's what the original was about. And then they turned it into basically a superhero movie. But it's all about the evil and, everyone that the evil beats it. And then what they're going to do is finally come back with Regan, the original victim who didn't do a thing but cry the entire movie, which she did a great job at. I'm not saying anything bad about her. But
she's going to defeat this demon?
Yeah, no,
she's not.
Not going to happen.
It just needs to stop. It all needs to stop.
I'd be up for a good sequel, but
I would not be up for any more of these.
They need to give this to someone.
No way to save it. I think it's just there's no way to save it now.
Exactly.
Because they've gone so many places. I mean, they're going to have to ignore part 2. Are they going to reference anything from the prequels? Which one do you reference now? Or do you just pick from whatever you want? Are they going to bring back George C. Scott's daughter? Pazuzu possessed an old woman and then came to my house with pruning shears. We didn't think that was weird and tried to cut my head off. Thank God my geriatric grandmother grabbed my hair at the last second, had reflexes like a tiger, and saved me. I was like, there's just, they've taken this franchise in 7,000 different ways, and they don't know which way they're going, and they're just trying to make an extra buck. And it's like, man, you destroyed one of the greatest movies of all time. Or you made a horrible franchise out of one of the greatest movies, period, of all time.
Right.
So your guys' answer has got to be stay away from these movies, right?
Well,
is there any reason to watch either of these?
I would say no. There's no reason whatsoever to watch either one of these movies at all. If you're going to watch one, it really doesn't matter which one you watch. It's junk and it makes no difference. So if you insist,
watch the first half of the first one, and then if you just
second half of
a little bit of creepiness, you can watch the second half of the second one.
But there's really no reason.
When you say the first one, you mean Dominion?
Oh yeah, Dominion. I guess
halfway through Dominion, switch to the beginning.
Yeah, I guess. But just watch a couple podcasts about the reviews from the movies. You'll hit all the important parts. We hit most of them here.
It's not necessary. You gain nothing from either one of those films. Except you get sick for a day and a half.
I'm the odd one out here. I hated the beginning. I've seen it 3 times. That is an awful, awful movie.
Wow. I hate that movie. I've seen it 3 times.
I saw it when it came out. I saw it because it just happened to be on TV while I was having a date once. And then I watched it for this podcast because it'd been like 15 years since I'd seen this atrocity. So,
all right, I have no problem with any of those.
Okay.
That totally makes sense.
I thought you were just like, I'm just going to watch it again.
You watched it the 3rd time for us. The 2nd time, you're on a date. You got to watch a scary movie. Unfortunately,
that's the only
one on. Well, what else are you going to watch?
It's just on TV.
You find one.
I watched Dominion for the first time for this podcast, and I actually enjoyed it from a character development standpoint. And if you're trying to follow some of the theology, like Marin's faith struggle was more developed there. I found that compelling.
100%.
It has horrible CGI, but the whole concept
Even
of
worse.
like Lucifer falling, I have a fascination with some of the stories about angels and demons in the Bible and the whole how they would manipulate people. And you do get to see them manipulate the natives and the British Army and kind of pull the strings to get groups to divide and hate each other, which is a very relevant topic since we're kind of living in an age the last few years where America here is pretty divided. So I was kind of watching it with that lens. If you're not interested in the faith journey and you're more of an action person, you're going to be let down by this one and the beginning. But if you are interested in watching Dominion from a faith point of view, it is kind of interesting. But just know you're going to have to look through and look past some of the worst special effects and the possessed kid Cheche. He doesn't look scary. It is going to look like an unfinished movie, I think. But the concepts are interesting. So I would rewatch that again for that reason, but I don't think I'll ever watch the beginning again because I can't take it, man.
Yeah, it's like I said, both movies had a moment or two where it's like, okay, that was kind of cool, or that was a little decent, but overall, the overall picture, it's just not worth your time. It's just not worth your effort. And if you're a fan of The Exorcist or The Exorcist 3, all this will do is just make you angry that they wasted time and money and did this to these movies. It's just completely unnecessary. I say don't, under any circumstance, watch these films.
Yeah, I agree with Drew. I mean, they do nothing to push the franchise forward. Like Nathan said, if you're interested in theology, stuff like that, or if you enjoy cheesy special effects movies, it might be funny just to go watch those scenes. Yeah, just for... It does, again, it just hurts the franchise a little bit more. 2 killed it already, and then 3 kind of revived it, and then they've just been stomping on the revived body ever since. Yep. So, yeah, no, just don't watch them.
Well, for listeners, we did cover the entire franchise. So we have a YouTube playlist that has a franchise primer, all of the theological concepts like behind what is demon possession and what does that mean, all that stuff. And then we have a podcast episode on each movie. So we've covered 1 through 3 and the new one, Exorcist Believer. If you just can't get enough of this franchise, I would say though, even though some of these are pretty bad films, we had interesting discussion on each of these movies, I think.
Yeah.
Because the
watching these movies,
are good.
Yeah, that's the only reason to watch these movies would to be able to discuss them. And, I guess we always say, is it worth watching? No. If you're watching it just for recreation, just so you want to know what's going on with the franchise, anything like that, skip it. But if you're looking to have a conversation, if you want to talk about theology, if you want to talk about exorcism movies, again, there were a few parts here and there in Dominion and in Beginning that it's like, they had something good there if they could have just built around that. Mm-hmm. Just a few tweaks. Again, it's very similar to Believer.
Well, listeners, we did dig up a couple interesting books that we'll put in the links in the video description. We dug up, there is a Exorcist 50 Years of Fear book that came out. That's pretty cool. And there's actually a book that's like horrible and fascinating, The Exorcist 2. So if you want to read about the second Exorcist film and why it's both horrible and fascinating, we'll put that there along with let's see, there's like a package deal with all the movies. So check that out in the video links below. And otherwise, thank you guys for suffering through this horrendous film with me. We'll see you guys.
See you later.